So here we have a Renault Kangoo electric van, and this video is a new owner's guide. So if you've recently bought one of these or you're thinking about buying one, then this video will show you how you use it, charge it, and all the information you'll need to get using your van straight away. Because if you're like most people, you're probably not going to read the user manual. So this van is a 2020 model, and it is the ZE33, so it means it's got the 33 kilowatt hour battery pack under the floor there. And these vans came out in about 2017 and stopped production in late 2022, I think. But the earlier vans had a 22 kilowatt hour battery pack underneath. Those were from about 2012 to 2017, and they're the same apart from a smaller battery pack, so this video will apply to those vans as well. So let's show you how you start it. With your key in the ignition and your foot on the brakes, turn the ignition on so the lights come on. You just need to give it sort of half a second pause there, and then turn it round as if it was a starter motor and release. And then you hear a beep, and then you've got a light there that says go. And it is now on and ready to drive, but obviously it's an electric, so there's no noise, vibration, it is completely silent. But you've got to look for the go light. If the go light isn't on, it isn't ready. So that could be because something is wrong, like it's not in park or you didn't put your foot on the brake. So I should also add, it needs to always be in park as well before you start it, and also then when you stop it. So at this point you drive it like an automatic. You've got an automatic gear shifter here, but this is nothing more than a switch really. But here it tells you your gears, park, reverse, neutral, drive, exactly the same as an automatic. You need to put your foot on the brake and push the knob in to move that, so it goes from park to reverse. It also tells you up on the screen here, so we've got an R, neutral, drive, and again it's telling you up on the screen there what gear you're in. So obviously do all that with your foot on the brake. When you're in drive, you can then release the handbrake, let go of the brake and use the accelerator, and at this point just drive it like an automatic. And then when you come to stop, obviously you would have put your foot on the brake again to stop. So when you've come to a complete stop, you can put it all the way up to park, handbrake on, and then you can turn it off. So the main difference between driving an electric Kangoo and a combustion engine Kangoo is regenerative braking. So these vans have very strong regen and have one pedal driving. So let's just explain what that is. So when you put the accelerator down, you're turning an electric motor at the front, which is turning your front wheels. And that motor's then spinning, turning front wheels, and you're moving along obviously. When you lift off the accelerator, that electric motor up front is still being spun because it's connected to your wheels. So effectively that motor instantly turns into a dynamo or generator, and it's then putting electricity back into your traction battery underneath. So all the time you're slowing down, the vehicle is being charged by that electric motor. And that is regenerative braking. It's got nothing to do with your brakes. It is effectively just engine braking, or in this case motor braking. So you want to capitalize on that. So you read the road ahead, lift off the accelerator as much as you can, because all the time the van is slowing down, you're charging the vehicle up and it's extending your range. So what you're doing effectively is you're capturing that kinetic energy going forward and putting it back into your battery pack. And the more you can do that, the better range you're going to get, because you're going to be driving more efficiently. And it's very nice to drive, and it feels very nice, safe and secure, because as soon as you lift off the accelerator, the van slows down. So to drive these vans efficiently, you basically don't want to be pushing the brake very often, because as soon as you push the brake to slow you down, you've wasted that kinetic energy into friction and heat in your brake pads, also wearing out your brake pads, creating brake dust, whereas you could have just allowed the motor to slow you down and captured that energy and put it back into the battery pack. So basically you want to read the road ahead a little bit more and lift off the accelerator a little bit sooner and allow the vehicle to coast to slow you down. If you find you're going to the brakes as you come into corners, you're not reading the road ahead enough and you're not lifting off the accelerator enough, you can genuinely drive all these vans all the time without ever touching the brakes. You'll only touch the brakes to hold it when you stopped at a junction or traffic lights or whatever, and of course in an emergency if you need to do an emergency stop. And you've got this meter up here, which is your power meter, and that, while it is very small and it should be an awful lot bigger, it should be as big as that really, that gives you an idea of what's going on, and if you use this it will help you drive efficiently. So let's explain this meter to start with. Basically this is your power meter, showing you giving you a gauge anyway of the power you're consuming. So when it's not consuming any power, it's at 12 o'clock like it's doing here. Let's see if I can show you a bit better there. So when the needle is moving across to this side, that's showing you the power you're consuming, and when it's moving across to this side, this is showing the power you're generating and putting back in the battery pack. So when you accelerate, the needle will go across here into the red, and you want to try to keep it out of the red if you can, or certainly not get it into the red too much. It's quite difficult to do because these have got quite a low powered motor, so when you accelerate it will come straight into the red, but if you can keep it at the beginning of the red while you accelerate, all the better. But once you've got up to speed, if you can just lift off the accelerator slightly and keep it into the blue area, then great. Basically the nearer it is to 12 o'clock, the better, because the less power you consume. When you lift off the accelerator and you're slowing down on the motor, the needle will then drop to the other side at 12 o'clock, which is putting electricity back into the battery pack. So the more the needle can drop across here, and for the longer time, you know, the more coasting you can do, the better your driving efficiency is going to be and the better your range is going to be. So keep an eye on this needle as you're driving, and just try to keep it out of the red and keep the needle as low as possible. And also make use of gradients. If you're coming down a hill, just lift off the accelerator slightly and you'll notice the needle will drop into the charging section, i.e. to the left of 12 o'clock. And just try not to use the brakes, and regen brake as much as you can using that electric motor at the front to charge your battery, and in turn that then slows the vehicle down. So if you're driving your electric van efficiently and allowing the regen braking effect to do all your slowing down, then that electric motor will be converting your kinetic energy of the vehicle going forward into electricity and putting it back into the battery pack, which obviously extends your range and improves your driving efficiency. You should hardly be using your brakes, so your brake pads will probably last 100,000 miles or more. The brake discs will probably last the life of the vehicle. You also won't be getting black brake dust on your wheels, and that's good for the environment because that brake particle matter gets into the air and the waterways. It'll also be better for your wallet with less servicing and also less electricity consumption. And to assist economic driving, you've got an eco mode, and there is a switch there that when you push it lights up, and you get an E on the screen there to remind you you're in eco mode. So what that basically does is reduces the power to the motor. So when you're accelerating, you're going to get slightly a more gentle acceleration, and it also limits the top speed. So for normal town and urban driving, it's perfectly adequate to drive it in eco all the time. However, if you're out on a dual carriageway or motorway, you'll probably find that the limited top speed will hinder you a bit. But while you're driving, you can take it in and out of eco at any point on the fly. Certainly have it in eco mode might help you to keep the needle out of the red and just make you accelerate a little bit more gently. But as a new driver of one of these vans, particularly if you come from a diesel van, you will feel like the van is slow, but they're not slow at all. These do have quite a small motor, and for an electric vehicle they are a little bit slower than others. However, when you compare it with a diesel Kangoo van, these have the same sort of performance figures, but when you're driving it, it will feel slower, but that's simply because these are smooth and quiet. Whereas a diesel vehicle, you get lots of noise and vibration when you're accelerating. So we're all tuned to that. So all that racket basically gives us a feeling of speed. But when you get an electric van, they are so quiet and you've got linear acceleration. So you don't have that same feeling of speed. You don't get that same feedback. So when you first drive one of these, it will feel slow. But the reality is you're not going any slower. And you will find that it feels like you're doing 10, 15, even 20 miles an hour slower than you're actually doing. So it's very easy to get caught with speed cameras and speed in these. So particularly when you're doing sort of 40, 50 miles an hour, it will actually only feel like 30. But it's just because these are so refined. These vans also have a pedestrian warning system, and that's basically a speaker up front behind the bumper, and it plays a tone out the front, and the pitch of that will change with the speed of the vehicle, and it plays that up to about 17 miles an hour. Once you get to that speed, it turns off, because by then the tyres are making enough noise so any pedestrians or cyclists can hear you. So when you're slowing down using that regen braking effect, the brake lights will come on at the back as well, even though you're not touching the brake pedal. And in fact, these vans are so quiet, you can hear the relay behind the glove box click in and out at slow speeds. And that's a way of telling that the brake lights are actually coming on. So let's just show you what else we've got on the instrument cluster here. So this is our fuel gauge, but obviously it's not a fuel tank, it's a battery pack, as the symbol shows you there. But treat it exactly the same as your previous fuel gauge. When the needle's up here, the battery's full, and then slowly it will drop down. And when you get down in the lower section, you want to think about charging, but most likely you're going to be driving back to base, where you'll typically charge it overnight. And then in the middle, we've got a speedo. There's a screen here we can change the information on, which I'll show you in a second. And then across here we've got our power meter at the top, and then this screen, which I'm not sure whether you can see because of the reflections, yeah, just about. There's a little picture of a car there which shows you when a door is open. This is showing us what gear we're in, P at the moment. And then the little symbol of a foot on the brake is basically telling you you need to push the brakes to change the gear. So the information on the screen there can be changed with these buttons on the end of the stalk. Whether you go up or down, it doesn't make any difference. But we've got trips, we've got our energy consumption, which is in kilowatt hours. We've got our average miles per kilowatt hour. So basically that is the equivalent of MPG in a combustion engine vehicle. But obviously with electric vehicles, we're measuring the electricity use. So it's miles per kilowatt hour of electricity. We've then got our current kilowatts that we're consuming, which is basically the digital version of that analog meter up there. That will also show you when it's negative, when you're charging the battery, and show you how many kilowatts you're putting back into the battery. This is the estimated range. These can be quite inaccurate because it's always a prediction, and there'll be certain things you'll do, like drive fast for a section, or drive up a hill, or use the heater, and this is obviously going to drop. But then there'll be other times where you'll be regenning down a hill or driving more efficiently. So do not put too much trust in this, because this can be quite inaccurate. And it's also based on driving history. So you might have one day where you've driven on fast roads and driven inefficiently, and then the next day this is going to assume you're going to be doing the same, so it will artificially drop, but it doesn't mean that's the miles you're going to get, because the next day you might drive more efficiently. So often you can, basically what I'm trying to say is, often you can drive more miles than that says. Do not treat that as the Bible, just treat it as a guide. You're far better as a new driver to use the fuel gauge here, effectively your battery pack state of charge gauge, and you get to know how many miles the van will be doing depending on the season, basically, and the temperature. But you know, typically these vans do about 130 miles on average, so you will get to feel of when this needle is dropping. And if you sort of just use this gauge, it will give you range anxiety less than focusing on estimated range. But if you're driving the same driving efficiency every day and all the time, then this will get pretty accurate. But if your driving efficiency varies and your heater use varies, then really just don't put too much trust in that gauge there. So using the buttons on the stalk, we can continue through. This is obviously just a trip. Average miles per hour. Comfort program is your preconditioning. So you can precondition the van in the morning. I'll show you that a bit later on. And then here's our service trip, telling you how many miles to the next service. That's where you can change the time. And then we go back to your normal time, outside temperature and mileage of the van. So as far as the rest of the switchgear goes, it's all standard stuff, so I don't need to go into all of that. Obviously you've got your lights and indicators here, wipers on that stalk, you've got stereo sort of audio controls there, hazards. This unlocks the rear doors if you've only pressed the key once. If you do it twice it will unlock all the doors. Remember you've got an eco switch down here, electric mirrors and electric windows, and then down here, out of sight out of mind really, is some hidden switches down here. You've got your light adjustment, and then if you've got extras fitted to your van you may well have some switches here. Often this is for an auxiliary heater, or also if you've got reversing parking sensors you'll have a switch for those there as well. So next I'll talk about the heater, and I'm sure you would have heard that electric vehicles do less range in the winter, and that's true, and that's primarily because of the heating use, because with an electric heater you've got no heat source, so you have to generate the heat, and that uses an awful lot of energy. Whereas a combustion engine vehicle, effectively you've got a fire under the bonnet, so you've got a lot of heat, so the heat is obviously the byproduct of burning your petrol or diesel. But with an electric vehicle you have an electric heater, so this draws power from the traction battery under the floor, so when you're using the heater you will see a less range because you're consuming more electricity. So if you want to drive efficiently then you just need to sort of minimize the heater use and only need it when you need to, and don't overheat the cabin. As far as using it, it's exactly the same as any other Kangoo van. You've basically got the fan there, and then you've got your heater adjustment here. The two outer dials are then for air direction and airflow. So these vans do have preconditioning as well. It's a really nice function, and something that many electric vehicles have, but it's all about being more efficient with your heater use in the winter. So there's a little clock symbol here, so what you do is you turn the temperature right round to maximum when it's on the clock symbol, and basically the van will precondition in the morning, and what it will do is put the heater on and get the van up to temperature. It will also melt the ice off the windows if it's particularly cold, and it does all that while the vehicle is connected to your charger. So what you do is you use that comfort program, so using the buttons on the end of the stalk you go round on the screen until it says comfort program there, and at the moment it's set for 8 AM, and you can use these buttons to change that time. So what that's basically saying is get the van ready for 8 AM, and if the van is plugged in then it would have charged overnight, and when the battery is at 100% the charging stops, but then the vehicle will wake itself up at probably about 20 to 8 in the morning and then put the heater on. So it does all this while the van is still locked and safe, and it will be drawing power from your house or your commercial premises, and it heats the cabin up. So that's why it's called preconditioning. So as I said, if it's particularly cold it will melt the ice off the windows as well. Certainly it will get it melted to enough so you could get in and swipe the wipers and it will just wipe it safely off the glass. And so when you get in your vehicle, the vehicle's all warm and hot, and when you disconnect it from the charger you've still got 100% battery, 100% range, but all the work has already been done, and it's very nice getting into a warm van. But what that will also mean is you could probably then do your driving without the heating on at all, so you can turn the fan off, and therefore you're preserving your range and maximising your driving efficiency in the winter. So now let's talk about charging, and first off, charging cables. So your van will come with an AC charging cable like this, and at this end you've got a Type 2 connector which goes into your wall charger or a public AC charging post, and the other end you've got a Type 2 connector which plugs in at the front of the van, which I'll show you. However, if you've got an older 22 kilowatt hour van, that's the sort of 2012 and 2013 models, this end will have a Type 1. So here we have a portable charger. These are often called a granny cable. So at this end we've got the same Type 2 connector to plug into the front of the van, but on the other end we've got a UK 3-pin plug. So this allows us to charge the vehicle from a normal main socket. These are slow because These are purposely limited to 10 amp because you can't draw any more than 10 amp through a socket and plug for many hours at a time. So when charging like this, you're only going to add about 9 or 10 miles per hour because those are limited to 32 amp. Whereas if you use a proper wall charger, then those charge at about 26 miles an hour, something like that, because you'll be charging at 32 amp. So when you're charging with a wall charger, you're charging at 32 amp, which is 7 kilowatt. Whereas if you use your portable charger through a mains socket, you're limited to 10 amp and therefore you're charging at 2.3 kilowatt. However, if you've got the earlier vans with the 22 kilowatt hour battery, they only have a 3.6 kilowatt charging. So even when you plug into a wall charger, you'll only be charging at 16 amp and not 32 amp as you do with the ZE33. So I'll show you how you charge. So whether you're using the portable charger or you're using a wall box, whether that's at home, workplace or a public AC charging post, you always plug the cable in to the charger first, or when you're using a portable charger, plug in the other end first and switch it on. So even though your cable is live, in this case we've got the portable charger here and the charging unit in the cable is obviously powered, there is no electricity at the plug end, and obviously they thought about this, and this doesn't go live until it's plugged into the vehicle and the vehicle's done its safety checks and it's safe to charge. So if you're walking up to the van and you accidentally drop this into a puddle, you're not going to electrocute yourself. So the reason I say you want to make your charge cable live first is because as soon as you plug this into the vehicle is going to be communicating back with the charger and doing all its tests before it enables the power. And when you plug in, if there's a delay, if you then sorting out the other end, it can sometimes stop communicating and give you an error. So now we've got our charge cable, whether it's a portable charger as I've got in this case, or whether it's a tethered cable from a wall charger, or you're using that other cable that's plugged into the wall charger. We come to the front of the van, open up the charge port here. We've then got an inner flap there covering up the Type 2 AC charging port, and we plug the cable in firmly. It will then do its communications, which it's shown when the ZE is then flashing. The indicators then flash to show it was happy. It's now switched on the charging and the vehicle is now charging, and you can see it's charging because that ZE light pulsates slowly. If while it was doing its checks it wasn't happy with something and there was a problem somewhere, then this little ZE lights will light up red and it won't enable the charging. And when it's charging, it will be displaying the remaining charge time up there on the dash. However, if your van's already locked and you unlock it to open the door to see that, it's going to actually turn off your charging. But in a case like that, if you just leave it, it will start charging again after a few moments, and that is because your charge cable is locked at the front of the van. And you can hear that little locking pin enable when you put the charge cable in. And basically that stops anyone nicking your charge cable or removing your cable and stopping your charge when you're not there. So to remove your cable, you've basically got to unlock the van, and when the central locking unlocks, it also unlocks that locking pin from the top of your cable there. So if I unlock the van, you can hear the latch there, and then you can remove the charge cable. So the onboard charger, which is under there under the bonnet, controls the other end of your charger, whether it's a wall charger or the portable charger. The van will charge to 100% and then turn off the charger. So basically, typically you would get home or back to base, plug the charging cable in and walk away, and you don't have to worry about it. The van will charge overnight to 100%, turn off. If in the morning you've got the preconditioning set, it will then wake up, take power again from the building and precondition the vehicle. While we're at the charge port, it's worth also noting that these charge flaps do have a habit of breaking on the Kangoos. So if this is feeling stiff, just be very careful with it, and you must lubricate it. So white grease works particularly well. Spray it down there so it's getting to the back of this plastic hinge, and then work that lubrication in. And if these start creaking and getting stiff, do not force them, because once that breaks they can't be replaced. Well, they can, but the whole charging unit has to be replaced and it's very expensive. There is a way around it. There's an alternative cap you can use, but it's far better just to keep this lubricated and not break the original, of course. So the Renault Kangoo van does not have DC rapid charging. So if it's the earlier 22 kilowatt hour van, they've got a 3.6 kilowatt AC charger here up front. If it's the 33 kilowatt hour van, they've got a 7 kilowatt AC charger. So these vans are no good for really long distance driving beyond the range of the vehicle, because you're not going to get that quick half an hour charge, because any charge is going to be on these vans it's going to be a rate of 25 miles per hour of charging. So for most people it's not an issue anyway, because a van is there to do a job, and if the range of the van is suitable for your typical daily use, then you're not going to be using rapid charging anyway. You're going to charge this vehicle overnight, and every morning it's going to have 100% and therefore enough range for your typical daily drive. But of course you can charge the van while you're working, and if you've got a portable charger then you can plug it into a normal 3-pin plug and probably bring the van up to 100% while you're doing your work, or of course plug it into an AC wall charger. So if you come to your van in the morning and the central locking isn't working, then either the coin battery in your key has gone flat, or maybe the 12-volt battery up front has gone flat. And if that's the case, then you need to open the van using the lock on the passenger side, and then you can release the bonnet. The bonnet catch is just there, and you slide it that way like that, and then under here is your 12-volt battery. And electric vehicles are completely reliant on the 12-volt battery to start, just like a combustion engine vehicle. But obviously this isn't cranking over an engine, this is just turning on your dash, and it also enables the contactors from the high voltage battery under the floor. So it is completely reliant on this to start, and if this is flat you're not going to start your vehicle. You can jump these from another vehicle, you've got to be a bit careful, but I've got another video on the channel which tells you how you do all of that and what you do if your key battery is flat or your 12-volt battery is flat. But the batteries on these are the larger battery they have in a diesel van, which is great because these last absolutely ages in an electric vehicle, whereas a lot of electric vehicles have very small batteries, and with modern vehicles with all the telematics and that sort of thing, they don't actually last very long. So it's not normally an issue on a Kangoo. Those batteries will last a good 2 months of the vehicle just sitting dormant, sometimes even more than that actually. So under normal operation, the only times you're going to want to open the bonnet is probably just to fill your screen wash here. And if you want to know more about what's under the bonnet here, I've done a video on that, and I'll put a link to it in the top of the screen there, and in the video description below I'll put a link to a playlist where you can watch all the other videos I've made on the Renault Kangoo electric van. So I think that's about it. As always, if you found this video useful, please do click that thumbs up button on YouTube, that really does help. And do subscribe if you want to know more about electric vehicles. Also have a look at that playlist where you can look at other videos on the Kangoo van. So that's it, I'll see you on the next video.